Hello.
Hi. We're just waiting for more people.
Let's just
I've sent on Discord.
Yeah. This should work. Let's wait until past 5 and then start anyway.
Yeah. Can you share your screen? Does it all work?
Yep, it should allow me to. Um, all right, can you see this?
Yeah.
All right, so I can't really see StreamYard anymore, so you'll have to let me know when to start or if there's any questions or things like that. Okay, we'll wait another minute and then begin. Okay, so it's past 5, so we'll just start anyway. Okay, thanks for joining, whoever's here. There's a lot to cover in this session, so I'm going to be a bit quick. If you can't follow, just let Rose know in the comments, and she'll let me know, and I can slow it down a bit. So, introduction to Python. This is the last workshop for today. Well done to making it till here. So why did we choose to do this in Python? Is because it's very easy to learn. It's a really fast growing language and it's very versatile. So if you know Python, you can do a lot of things. You can use it for data science. You can use it for web development, machine learning, app development, everything, which is not the case with most other languages like R, which is only used in data science, JavaScript, only web development. So Python is really, really, really powerful. So let's get right into it. First, we'll go through the basics. I don't know if you guys have never coded before. Hello World is basically the first program you write when you're learning a new language. So in Python, when you say print, it basically, before that, if you all can go to replit, that's repl.it in your browser and create an account, you can do all the programs with me as we go along. So I'll just wait for a couple minutes to let you go here, replit. So it's just repl.it. There's no .com in the end. And create an account, and we can take it from there. Once you create an account, you can just click on this blue plus sign here, and it will create a new repo for you. Choose Python. Name your project, whatever you'd like to name. I just called it my first Python project, but you can name it whatever. And you can also make it either public or private, depending on whatever you're comfortable with. And then click on create REPL, and it should take you to this page. So I'll just wait a couple minutes and let you do that. Okay, so I'm guessing you've created your REPL. If not, just let me know in the comments below and I can wait further, but I'm gonna move on for now. So yeah, basically when you say print, you're telling this, I'll change a few settings here. If you go click on this and change your layout from side by side to stacked, it just makes it easier to read code and everything because you get more space to write code. So when you say print, say hello world, what you're basically telling your computer is to print this into your output console. So this is the function. This is the word. It's called a keyword. So you just use print to print anything into your console. Second is input. So for example, you want your user to answer your questions. So if you say input, are you enjoying HACXMAS? And you run it, you see this gives you a little white line here. So you can actually type your answer, and this gets saved into your program. So now you can use this response for anywhere else in your code. Right now, we haven't reached variables yet. So I'll show you how you can use it in your program next. Comments. This is very useful. For example, if you just want to make notes, you can just write anything here using a hashtag. So what your compiler does is it will just ignore everything after the hashtag. Like it will just ignore it. So you can do whatever you want to. You can make notes on things. It's a very good way to document your code as well. So yeah, that's useful. Now we come to variables. So think of variables like a box with a label. So for example, if I say name and I write my name, and then I go to age and I write my age, say, and then I can write a comment saying this is not my real age. So now you can use name and age anywhere else in your program, and it will basically point to this and this value. So you don't have to keep writing Vidi or 18 over and over again. You can just use name and age. Data types. So there are different data types in different languages. In Python, these are the few ones that you will use very often. First one is integers. So you don't really have to worry about what data type does what, because you don't really have to specify. Like for example, here I just put name and I put my name Vidi in inverted commas. That's a string. So Python just knows that anything between inverted commas is a string. And if I just put in a number, Python automatically knows that it's an integer. So you don't have to really worry about it. It's just good to know. And if I put, for example, 18.5, Python automatically knows that this is a float. Floating point numbers are basically numbers with decimal points. This is what they call it in programming languages. So you don't really need to worry about it because Python just detects them on its own. We already went through string. So when you put anything between inverted commas, Python just knows that it's a string. And string is nothing but so anything you put between these characters, Python will print it out into your console as it is. So if I had to put VD 456, because it's in these inverted commas, Python knows that this isn't really an actual number. If I wanted this to be 456, I would have to remove this and remove this. Now Python knows that this is also an integer now, but I don't want that, so I will keep this. So now this becomes a string again. So anything between these inverted commas, Python will print it out as it is. F string, this is very useful when you want to, so this is where let's use this program. Days 365, and then I say print. And now I want to print 365 into my sentence. However, I will use F, and then there are, and then I will use these squiggly brackets and say days in a year. I need to close this. And now when I print, you can see in my console, it says there are 365 days in a year. So what it has done is it has replaced this days with this. So it's really good for programs like if you want to calculate number of days on different number of days in a year on different planets and things like that. So you don't really have to go and change, because you'll have different statements for different planets. So you won't have to really go and change. There are 365 days in a year on Earth, for example. And then you'll have another print statement which says there are some 500 days in a year on Mars or something like that. So when you have just this, whatever I put in here, it will change on its own. So if I put 500, now it will print 500. So it's a very useful tool to use, and we're going to do more programs in the future. So you can see how it's used. Next is maths. So in Python, when you can do a lot of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, everything. So when you want to add, you just use a plus sign. When you want to subtract, you use a minus sign. When you want to multiply, you use a star. When you want to divide, you use a /. For an exponent, you use 2 stars, and modulo, that's modulus. So when you use this, it basically gives you the remainder of, so after you divide a number, it shows the remainder of that number. So for example, if I do 5 divided by 2, the remainder will be 1. So if I do this, the output will be 1. So we can just test it out maybe. 5, B is 2, and then if I do C, A plus B, and then, so this is a correct program. So if I run it, it won't print anything because we don't have a print statement yet. So all I have to do is add print C, and it will print 7. So if I change this from plus to minus, and then print C, it will give me 3. Let's try it with the modulo. This should print 1. There we go. It prints 1. So this operator, the modulo operator, is very useful when you want to do programs like finding out if the number is odd or even, Fibonacci series, or finding out if the year is a leap year or not. You will use this operator in those instances. Functions. So a function is basically a group of a set of programming lines that you will use over and over again in your program. So instead of writing all of them over and over again, you just put them in a function, and then you can call the function. Let's try it out. So if I say, the way you write a function in Python is you put def, that's how you define a function. Then you put the function name. So you can call it anything. I'm going to call it my function. And then you end it with these two round brackets followed with a colon. So in Python, when you write functions, it's very important to remember you need to have this space. If you don't have this space, I just say print hello like this. It's going to give me an error, and it's going to be a syntax error. So let's run this and see what it says. Okay, so it's an indentation error, because that's how Python knows that if I do this now, it will run. Because I haven't called the function, it won't print anything. But this space is really important in Python, because in other programming languages, when you define a function, you'll start it with a squiggly bracket, or there's some other kind of sign that tells the computer that this is now my function and this is where it starts and this is where it ends. In Python, there is nothing like that. So you need to have the space, otherwise your program won't work. So let's say name input. I'll say your name. I'll put a space. Okay. And then print. Now we're going to use the F string again. So I will say welcome and name. And now if I run it, it's not going to print anything because we haven't really called the function yet. So for Python to know that you want this function to work, you need to do this. You need to call the function. And this is how we call the function. You just write the function name. So now when I run it, hello, it asks my name. I can enter my name. And now it says welcome. So if I show you this again, I will comment this out. And now run it. It doesn't do anything. So this is what actually calls the function. So when you write this, Python understands, okay, you want everything that's inside this function to compile. So that's what this is for. So if I write my function twice, it will run the function twice. See, it's running the function twice. So this is very useful when you have really long programs. You don't want to, keep writing the same line of code again and again. So every time you want to just use these set of lines, you can just call this function and it will do exactly what's inside this. So let's move on. Conditionals. These are very powerful statements, and you can do so much with these statements. Let's give this a go. So when you say if, so if is basically if something is, and you put a condition. So here I have put if n is greater than 2, print larger than 2. So okay, that's not right. That's an error there. Let's write this. If n is greater than 2, print, and I'm going to use the F string again. So n is larger than 2. And end it. So now when I run it, it's taking a while. Okay, so now it says 5 is larger than 2. So basically this, what I've used here, the greater sign, they are called, they're again called conditional operators. So you can use greater than, you can use less than, you can use If you want to say something is equal to, you don't use one sign, because a single equal to sign basically means assignment in programming. So I have used it here. That means I am assigning the number 5 to the variable n. So if I want to say n is equal to 2, I will have to put equal to twice. So this means if n is equal to 2. And now let's run it, and it will, let's see what this prints. It won't print anything because n is currently n is not equal to 2. It's not larger than 2. So, oh, actually it should. Yeah, so if I change this to 2 here, 2 is larger than 2. That's wrong. It should actually be equal to, but it's just printing what's inside this string. So you see how the f string is so useful, because every time I change the number here or whatever, I don't have to keep changing the number here. It just automatically takes in whatever is assigned to it. So after if, so for example, now I have n, if n is greater than 2, print it's larger than 2. But now I want to say that if n is less than 2, print n is less than 2. So I can't really do that with just this. So I will have to add another statement saying else. Print. Again, we'll use the n is smaller than 2. Okay, so now it's going to run through this if statement first. So n is right now 5, which is, we know that it is larger than 2. So it's going to run through this if statement first and check if n is greater than 2, it will print this. If it is not, it will just skip this and go on to the next and see, oh, n is actually smaller than 2, and then print f is smaller than 2. So let's run this right now, and it's going to print larger. But if I change it to 1, it's going to print smaller. So it's a very great way to have conditional. So yeah. And now I want to add another statement and say if n is equal to 2, print n is equal to 2. But I can't do that right now. So we're going to look at elif. So I will just change this else to elif. And elif is nothing but a concatenation of else if. So after elif also always needs to be followed by a condition, just like if. So I will now say elif n is less than 2, print n is smaller than 2. Elif n is equal to 2, print n is equal to 2. All right. So you see how I have indented all of my statements. If I don't do this, the compiler is going to give me an error saying indentation error. So this is very important. Every time you use an if statement or a function or a class or whatever, you have to be careful with your indentation. So, oops. Let's run this. And now it's at 1. So n is smaller than 1, which is why it has printed this one. If we change this to 2, I'm going to print 2 is equal to 2. So that's how elif works. Loops. Now, whatever we've learned so far, you can obviously write complete Python programs using just these things that we've learned. However, you're not gonna have much power to do bigger programs or make sensible programs out of any of this. So that's where loops come in. The first one and the most easiest one in Python is the while loop. So what the while loop does is you put while and then you put a condition after it. while loop will keep running it until that condition becomes false. So let's take an example. N is equal to 1, while, and then while is the keyword, and then you follow while with a condition like we did in if and elif. So n less than 100, print n, and n equals to n plus 1. So what I'm doing here is I'm assigning n as 1. So n will begin with 1. So once it goes into the loop, it will check if n is less than 1. If n is less than 100, which it is because it is 1, it will print n, and then it will add 1 to n. So after I run this, it's in the second iteration, n is going to be 2. And then it will run through the program again, and it will say, while n is less than 100, which it is because right now it's 2, it will print n, so it will print 2. And then it will again increment n by 1. So n is now 3, and then it will keep running until keep running through this loop until n is 100. So if I run this now, you see it's printed everything until 99 because I've said n less than 100. If I were to do this, n is less than or equal to 100, it will print 100 as well. So you can use this, or you can use this. So right now, let's just keep it. N is less than 100. So you can see it's printed it 100 times because, so if I change this to 200, it won't print anything because n is now greater than 100. So this condition is false. Is it okay? Yeah. Okay, here it is. So it's not going to, yeah. That's strange. Okay, I think it's just printing. Okay. So if I say n equal to 200, while n is less than 100, print n. And then another way to increment the variable by 1 is you can just say plus and equal to 1. So instead of writing n equals to n plus 1, you can just use this sign. It basically means they mean the same thing. So it's just a shorter way to write this. So now if I run it, it's going to print nothing because, as we saw, n is greater than 200 right now. So moving on to the next loop, for loop. So for loop gives you more control than while loop because you can do a lot more things. You can iterate through an entire list. You can iterate through an entire string. Anything that is iterable. You can use a tuple. You can use anything. So, for example, if I run this program here and say all fruits, and this what we're using right now inside the square brackets, it's called a list in Python. So apple, banana, and orange. Now I say for. So for is the keyword here. And now we can use any alphabet. I'm going to use fruit. That's in all fruits. And fruit. And now it's going to print apple, banana, and orange on separate lines. So what actually happened here was when I said for fruit in all fruits, it will go and then print fruit. So if I take out this print statement, it's not gonna do anything. That's an incomplete program. So I do need this. So it will first go through the list and say for fruit in all fruits. So the first fruit is apple. So it printed apple. Then it will again go through the loop and say banana. Okay, it print banana. Run the loop again and print orange. So if I were to add more things, say mango, it will now print mango as well. So it's quite a useful way to go through lists and tuples or strings. You can even do this. So if I were to have a string and say long string, it will print every letter one by one. This is because in Python, when you write a string, it doesn't really take this as one word. It takes it as a sequence of different characters, which is why it's able to do this. So if I were to add a space here and write another long string and run it, you see it also printed a space here because that's a character. So yeah. So for loops are very, very useful. I have an example here with, so for example, if you wanted to find out the sum of numbers between 1 to 100, you would do something like this. So I'll just add nums 100. You can do anything. You can call this n, or just make sure you have the same variable name everywhere you use it. What is this? Let's run it. It says syntax error. I'm not too sure why. Okay, that's strange.
Is it the bracket tab they use for nums? Can I do that?
No, that's fine. Huh, strange. I'm not too sure why this is happening.
Let me search up there.
So whenever you're stuck, just Google. So it says invalid character and identifier. And you go to Stack Overflow and you get all the answers from there. So let's see.
I couldn't really find anything.
Okay. I'm still not sure why this is happening though. Anyway, we'll just move on. I'll look into this later. It literally worked before.
It could be REPL as well sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why that's happening. Anyway, we'll move on. So that was the end of like the basics in Python. A few problems you can work on after this is swapping to variables. These are very common beginners problems in Python. So you can just give it a go. And if you have any problems, you can shout me in Discord or send me a message and I'll be more than happy to help. Just giving you a few hints. So when you're solving swap to variables, you will have, for example, A is 2 and B is 5. Your output should be B is 5 and A is 2. So think of how you will do this. The way I look at this is, imagine you have a cup of coffee and you have a glass of water and you want to swap the two. So you want water from the glass to go into the cup with coffee, and you want the cup of coffee to go into the glass. So how would you do that? You'll need a third glass. So you can put the water in the third glass, then put the coffee in to the glass of water, and then from the third glass, you put water back into the cup of coffee. So try and give it a go. Find the sum of natural numbers. So we used for loops. We used if-else statements. That's what you'd use here. Checking if a number is odd or even. Again, you'd use if-else statements. Checking for a leap year. So if a year is, so for example, if you have a variable, say year, and it's 2000, it should tell you, when you run your program, it should tell you if 2000 was a leap year or not. And if I have something like 2001, it should say this was not a leap year. So the way you do this was using the modulo operator that we went through earlier. And then printing the Fibonacci series. This is the most difficult problem out of the 5, which is why I put it last. You would use for loops and if-else statements. So yeah. Okay, that was the end of this. I'm not too sure why I got that error, but I'm going to look into it and I will update you guys on Discord. Does anyone have any questions, or would you like me to go over anything again? If not, you can thank you for joining and I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.